all the words and stuff like
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so welcome everybody to the August meeting for SARS. Um, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Elena Sottolana, who is, I believe, a first-time speaker at SARS
I
and
am.
has a special interest in relationship astrology. She also has several qualifications to her name, which includes qualifications from the Sydney Astrology School, the FAA, Federation of Australian Astrologers, Horary Astrology through the School of Traditional Astrology, and most recently a rectification course with Jodie Forrest. So tonight we're going to be looking at relationships through the lens of celebrity, as well as the astrological indicators of longevity in the chart. So it gives me great pleasure to hand over to Elena. Welcome to SARS, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Oh, thank you so much, Benjamin. Do I need to put the share screen
Yeah,
now?
you can start sharing your screen whenever you're ready.
Okay, excellent. So share screen, pick PowerPoint presentation,
Beautiful.
and then press the play button.
Yeah,
Okay, can
perfect.
everyone see that? Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Excellent. I think I don't know what's happened there with all right, cool. Thank you so much for coming. And I just want to give a big shout out and thank you to Cheryl for inviting me to today and for providing such a great platform for astrologers to present their research. Because I don't think there's pretty much any other place that really honors that. And so thank you to the Sydney Astrological Research Society for allowing me to present to you guys. So I will be presenting 3 celebrities. The first 2, I'm going to get you to guess who they are. And the last one will be a good contrast to the first 2. But before I do that, I just want to start off by just looking at the energy that's that's in around at the moment in terms of how we are relating to each other. The whole thing about relationships. So I'll just, if I go like this, okay, that's my first slide. I can't actually see myself, but in the top, but I'm sure you can see the slides as we go along. So, all right, so the first slide I've got, first and foremost, I want people to know that, I'm not, even though I am concentrating on looking at longevity markers in relationships, I'm not saying that that's the be all and end all. Like, everyone should have a long-term relationship. I'm basically just interested to see what they are. And so that's why, I've got here's my first slide. All relationships, there's really no good, bad, right or wrong. They just are. So, and that's, as what we say with astrology as well, there's no such thing as good, bad, right or wrong in our charts. It just is the energies. And you might be thinking, why on earth have I got a seahorse in my coffee cup that one of my barista boyfriends meticulously made for me? It just got me thinking. I thought, oh my God, what about, because I've sort of known a bit of trivia about seahorses, how they're very, monogamous and they mate for life. And, apparently when one dies, the other dies. And, I was thinking, oh my God, what about if you could actually do a synastry, like a relationship chart on seahorses, and you could really tell the ultimate, look for the ultimate longevity markers that really glues that long-term relationship together. But obviously we're not seahorses. But I just thought it was an interesting outlook about looking at something that's not human. So if we go to now, why on earth are we talking about relationships? Like, why do we do relationships in the first place? And I really do believe that by doing our relationships, so the 7th house of relationships, I really do believe that we can actually see ourselves, so first house, much better. And that's why I really like this photo, because it really does show how it's almost like we have a mirror to ourselves, and they're almost, the person that we meet is almost mirroring mostly sometimes our flaws that we need to resolve. And especially when we look at so definitely the whole seventh house, but especially your descendant. I don't know if you've had, and that could be like really literal as well. So looking at your descendant, what the sign, and especially the ruler of the descendant, and what house it falls in your chart, you can literally, it's just amazing how uncanny you can actually literally bring in that type of energy into your life to really help you look at who you really are. And I think that's the whole point of evolution, is really just coming back to our true selves. So that's why I'm so intrigued by relationships and helping others to interpret their relationships, because at the end of the day, really the whole point is just getting back to a relationship with yourself, and that's the most important thing. So looking at defining relationships, we've got to look at the energy that's coming in. Before we do that, I wanted to see the energy that we actually were born in with, in terms of love and relationships. And I thought we had to look at Neptune. So that's a beautiful picture of the god of the sea, Neptune, with all his beautiful Venusian women there. And I've got this table here that basically shows, so throughout the generations, and I'm looking at Neptune because Neptune represents, it's the collective energy I wanted to really focus on. So the generational energy. It's a higher octave. It's a higher octave to Venus, the goddess of love. So I just really wanted to see an overall energy that, you know, a whole generation is really embracing. So if you look at the first row, you'll notice, so anyone born between 1942 to 1956, so if you're currently 68 to 82 years of age, you would have Neptune in Libra in your birth chart. And Libra, of course, you know, the ruler of relationships, you know, obviously doing relationships well is important. And I've nicknamed this generational love energy as romance was born. Then it goes down to an even more intense love, Neptune in Scorpio. So people born between 1956 to 1970. And I've just nicknamed this energy as till death do us part, you know, very, very intense love during this time. As we move further down, though, you'll notice that the energy of how we relate to each other is getting more, how can I say, new age of Aquarius. So it you know, as we go into Sagittarius, so people between 1970 to 1984, that's me. I nickname this as ayahuasca love. So people who are using tools to really quest for the higher meaning in life. I mean, that's the underlying energy that's really important in this generation. So, you know, it's no wonder why you've got all these spiritual retreats, you know, coming in at the with these people who are interested in that. In Capricorn, so 1984 to 1998, if you're between 26 and 40, you know, you're either doing love the right way, so or you're not doing it at all. So pretty much like, you know, you might be perhaps, you know, having kids and then getting married later, or really just, you know, I don't want to say the word hermit, but being, you know, not really getting into the you know, the love dating scene at all. And then we come to Aquarius. So Aquarius energy at the moment, so from 13, I know you might think this is a bit young, but 13 to 26, as these kids get older, so these guys are literally bringing in the trends of how we are relating at the moment. And what you'll notice with the new age of Aquarius trends is that obviously, you know, Aquarius hates labels, right? So any relationship that has no labels attached to it, no boundaries as well, you know, anything goes pretty much. But at the same time, authenticity must be active. So, you know, it's a relationship where we're relating to each other, where we have to really be true to our true selves. And it's not about hiding or being someone else. So we're learning this new generation is really honoring this new age of Aquarius energy. Obviously non-traditional, you know, non-nuclear relationships, obviously a digital access, you know, Aquarius rules technology, innovation, you know, online dating, direct messaging, social media apps, AI relationships coming soon, I bet. And I'm sure you've heard all the terms friends with benefits, situationships, and ghosting. You know, Aquarius can be a bit cold and dry energy. So, you know, people not formally saying goodbye to you is a ghosting way. Situationships, it's a bit confusing what you might actually label this relationship. You know, you might be acting like husband and wife, but you know, you're not fully living together. All those three terms too, they do have an energy of the actual current Neptune energy that is present at the moment. And we all know that that is Neptune in Pisces, right? So Pisces, obviously limitless, boundless energy. And because it's at the anaretic degree at the moment this year, it's almost like it has to do its job at the 11th hour, right? So it's really, and what does Neptune in Pisces want to do? Well, Neptune obviously wants to dissolve. And Pisces is, we're really trying to dissolve the unconscious, the shadow aspect, the unconscious way of doing Pisces. And that really is dissolving the victim consciousness mentality. So, and to have a victim, you really need a bully. So it's trying to get rid of that victim-bully relationship dynamics where, you know, the victim has to self-sacrifice herself to be in a relationship. So pretty much to lose his or her sense of self to be in a marriage. It's about, you know, finding your Prince Charming and you have happily ever after to death do us part. Now, all these energies are mirrored in this new Netflix show, and I'm pretty much addicted to this show. It's really interesting. It's based in the 1800s in England, and it's literally all about finding your suitor to get married, right? But isn't it interesting how this show has come at this time at the 11th hour to almost shine a light on, you know, Neptune in Pisces? Like pretty much this show really does represent, I'm almost calling it like the Bridgerton effect energies that are coming in, you know. It's the 11th hour that we have to really be aware of these energies where we're sort of like, you know, losing our sense of self, and because once we learn how not to lose our sense of self, right, then we come to 2025 where we're going to have Neptune ingressing into Aries, right? And that's a completely different energy to Pisces. So I think that the Aries with the Neptune there, as the love energies, how we will be relating in relationships, it's going to give a lot of fire to that air Aquarius generation there. So I actually think it's going to speed things up, and definitely there'll be a lot more self-orientated relationships, you know, where everybody has their wants and desires met, you know. There will be no shame in ending a relationship, no obligation to stay in a relationship for relationship's sake, you know. And I really do predict there'll be like really pioneering, like never seen before relationship dynamics. So, and if you add the, you know, the fire with the Aquarius, you know, does that include like new laws for marriage? Like, you know, or it could be just like we could have laws for like a 1-year marriage, perhaps, or like a marriage between more than 2 people or something like that. So that's what I predict Aries love for next year. It's just going to get hotter and faster and quicker. But overall, the best thing about it is that we'll actually honor our sense of self in a relationship, which is probably the most important thing when doing a relationship. So looking at those energies, I just now want to go through what I do to interpret a relationship. 3 steps. You know, step 1. So obviously, I look at each individual chart individually to honor their unique gifts that each one is coming in with. And then step 2, I basically just make the bi-wheels. So I overlay the 2 birth charts. And I'm really looking for 2 things. It's the inter-aspects between, so the aspects that are interacting between the 2 charts, and the house transposition. So, you know, if someone's planet is falling in somebody, in the other person's house there, that obviously will give a lot of energy to that house. And then 3, I make the composite chart, where I just basically merge the 2 birth charts together, and I read it exactly like a birth chart, but I make sure I know that I'm reading the chart for the personality of the couple. So I almost think of it like as a company almost, you know. I think of, okay, what's the reason for this relationship, and what's the mission statement for this company? That's how I like to look at it with the composite chart. But I do read it exactly like a birth chart. So I look at all the stuff. Obviously, even with interpreting one chart, there's heaps of information, right? But when you're looking at 2 charts together, there's so many things to look at. So I always make sure I'm prioritizing. First and foremost, angles. Anything that are at angles demand attention, and they want to be seen, and they want to be prominent in that relationship. So they're going to be like a front seat to that relationship. So angles really I look at first. Conjunctions, definitely most important. Something that I find that's very underutilized is looking at the elements of each person's chart and the elements of the composite chart. I think they're so important, and you can actually, I'm really looking for the lack and the emphasis of, what is lacking in one person's chart, and seeing if the other person brings that in, or if the composite chart does that as well. I just think the elements are so important. Primal triad, of course, is sun, moon, ascendant. Personal planets as well. Venus, obviously, is how we love, what we value. Mars, how we deal with conflict, what we might physically be attracted to. And Mercury, of course, is how we communicate with each other. Very, very important, those. So the primal triad and the personal planets, I definitely prioritize first. Then I also look at the arc of intimacy. So that's a Stephen and Jodie Forrest term. And in the book Skymates 1, obviously you think the 7th house, of course, is the most important house of relationships. And of course, the descendant ruler is what's going to be very important to look at, of course. But honestly, the amount of synastry that I've done for couples, like looking at the fourth house in particular, it is so important. And that's why I've got this quote at the bottom there, which says, we can draw in partners who represent our parents. You know, psychology 101, really. I've seen that so many times as the root causes of, you know, what people need to resolve in their current partnerships. So fourth house, I really do pay particular attention to the fourth house of each individual's natal chart, just to see their childhood upbringing, you know. Fifth house too, how they want to play, you know, what excites them. Sixth house is what mentors they might bring in, so really special people that they need to learn from. Seventh house, of course, relationships, who they bring in to see themselves, the first house. And eighth house, I like to say, is basically the seventh house on steroids, basically, which will show an even more intimate way of relating. Guidelines to synastry to relate interpreting relationships. Definitely stick to Ptolemaic aspects. Conjunctions first, I look at, always. Then squares, oppositions, trines, and sextiles. If there is a quincunx that is looking, you know, that I notice, I will definitely pay attention to it. Otherwise, I don't, you know, it's not a step that I do. For serious relationships, I always look at the lunar nodes. Very, very important. In bi-wills, this might be a little bit controversial, but I still use Placidus overall. And when I am doing Placidus charts, especially for the primal triad and the personal planets, I'm actually looking at the connections of how they connect via elements and not, you know, how close they are within an orb of degrees. So if someone's moon, for example, is at 16 degrees of Taurus, and you know, your ascendant is at 0 degrees of Taurus, I still count that as a connection, as a conjunction. I think it's so important that elements, I still feel like if they're within the same element, they're definitely paying, there's definitely energy that they're, you know, relating to. I always look out for Juno, the goddess of commitment, Vesta, the goddess of devotion, and of course the vertex points. So any planets to the vertex, you know, those are the people that you're drawing in to learn from. And we, you know, we're attracting those people in to evolve. For outer planets, I definitely look at them in the composite chart, but only in the bi-wills if, you know, they're making, if they're at the angles, or if the couple has a big age difference, then I definitely look at yeah, those. All right, so this is the first couple. Can everybody hear me? Like, pretty sure I don't even have the chat box. I'm pretty sure everything's okay.
Yes, we can hear.
Oh, good. So the first couple, obviously not their real names, Tommy and Gina, they've been 35 years married. And you can write your guesses in the chat box, I suppose. I don't know how, I don't have access to the chat box, but anyway, I'll give hints along the way. So first couple, celebrity couple, Tommy's 62 years of age currently. He's a Libra ascendant, so, you know, the peacemaker, very compromising. Beautiful Pisces sun conjunct Venus in the 5th house, which makes him a very creative person, loves to perform. But then you've got a very different moon, very solid, strong, rock solid moon in Capricorn. Look at that. It looks like right at the bottom, right on the IC there, it's almost like holding his whole chart. And it also almost looks like a rock when I saw this. I thought, wow, he's got really strong stability there. which is very different to his Venus and ascendant. So he's got both, you know, he obviously needs to be a father in this lifetime, but he also has to do something creative as well. So the chart ruler Venus exalted in Pisces, he definitely values very spiritually awakened women, I suppose. He's got a very strong Aquarius stellium there. And it looks like, and it's part of his South Node story, where it looks like perhaps in a past life, there was a blockage in how he was able to communicate. Perhaps he was duty bound. You know, there's a Saturn also conjunct the South Node. You know, perhaps living for other people's, you know, based on other people's rules. And but in this lifetime, this guy really has to like skyrocket to the 10th house with the North Node in Leo. He has to shine big time. He has to make a name for himself big time. He literally has to roar like a lion out in the public. And as well as that, though, you do have Cancer on the MC. So, and that brings him back to the moon, down to the 4th house. So he has to balance being the rock, but also the star. So there's a hint. He's a rock star. His elements, he's air and water dominant, and he's very fixed as well, fixed dominant in his modes. And of course, he's got Neptune in to death do us part Scorpio, so very intense love, and that's on his second house door. So he very much values, you know, commitment, long-term love, right? So next we go on to Gina. She's also the same age. Okay, so that's really important. I didn't actually have her time, but so we can't really look at the houses the planets are residing in, but we can definitely see that she's a triple Libran, so triple peacemaker, I called her. Venus, she's got an extraordinarily intense Venus conjunct Neptune in Scorpio. That is so intense. That's, you know, she definitely needs a very deep, soulful connection, and she's, you know, she's spiritually aware as well, which is what Tommy definitely values as well. Mars in Cancer, so she's the mama bear there, the protector, and also will appreciate a very good provider, you know, who and a protector for her children. They, you know, she might have a Sagittarius ascendant with a basis on a noon birth time, which makes her a spiritual teacher there with Jupiter conjunct Chiron in Pisces. She definitely has the same past life story as Tommy. So the South Node conjunct Saturn in Aquarius, where, you know, duty bound, burdened, living with lots of fear, faceless worker, you know, just paying the wages, you know, living day to day. But she really has to shine as well. So they've got the same, it's almost like they're growing, they've been able to grow together. They, you know, to resolve their South Node together. So that's one good, definitely one good longevity marker there, where they've been able to grow together to resolve their South Node wound there. Elements too, she's exactly the same as Tommy. So both air and water dominant, and also fixed dominant, exactly the same as Tommy. And obviously they have the same social and outer planets, including Neptune in Scorpio, which is the to death do us part love. So here we've got the first, so I can only use one by will. So when I don't have the time for Gina or anyone, I put them on the outer will. And I make Tommy's will in the center there, because obviously we know his time. So we can look at into aspects. Gina's moon, Mercury, and the sun. I know, see, this is where I'm using whole sign based orbs. With the sun at 6 degrees in Libra, it's very far away from 17 degrees of the ascendant, but you know, that's definitely, they're definitely singing together. You know, lots of moral support, beautiful, nourishing relationship there that Gina would provide Tommy there. Gina's Mars also at the top is very potent there in Cancer, and it's so strong. It's obviously like the turbo blast, you know. It wants to make that 10th house shine. So she's very invested in making him shine. She's also, though, she's making a very strong opposition to the moon. Now, I mean, I've studied Hori, and if you see a moon being opposed by Mars, you know, that's not good. But in synastry, in relationship astrology, oppositions, and I'll just quote what Forrest states in his Sky Mates 1 book. He says, always the opposition aspect can be problematic, but of all the aspects, it is certainly the most romantic. When two people experience a feeling of being each other's lost half, we'll see lots of oppositions between their birth charts. So it's actually not technically a really bad thing to see that, you know. And it looks like that Mars is definitely turbo blasting the 10th house, but it's also definitely turbo blasting that 4th house too. It's like saying, you know, I'm going to make you the rock of, you know, the rock in the 4th house, star, 10th house, rock star. I'm going to help you do that. I'm going to help you have a beautiful family, but I'm also going to make you, you know, honor your creative gifts. So she's quite a lucky charm for Tommy. We see beautiful interaspects between, so Gina's Venus conjunct his Neptune there. That's a beautiful soulmate connection there. Beautiful romantic connection we see with Venus trine Venus. That's stunning. And also Mercury trine Mercury, like they would feel like, you know, long lost friends. Mars also trining his Venus. That's excellent, you know, physical attraction too. So there's quite a lot of harmony. You want to see a lot of harmonious aspects overall. It just makes the relationship easy. But also you do want to see a bit of grit in the Bibles, and that's with the squares. So, and you can see that she's squaring his moon. So she really is making sure, you know, squares demand action, right? So she's really making sure, yes, you're going to be the father to my children, but I'm also going to help you honor your Venus, really, at the ascendant there, the chart ruler. I'm going to help you be creative as well. And there's a quote that she says, we never really dragged the kids to things. I never pointed at the TV and said, there's daddy. We try hard just to give our kids a normal life. And so balancing, so keeping separate the 4th house, you know, the family with the 10th house, the career, that was one of the keys that they said really helped them bring their kids up. They've got 4 kids together. That's another hint. House transmission. So, you know, her Saturn is so strong in the 4th house. 4th house connections are really extremely strong commitment marker as well. So, you know, she's serious home she wants to make with him, right? But also look at the Jupiter in the 5th house too. She really wants to, you know, obviously have children with him, but, you know, they would really have a lot of fun times together. Like she would, you know, they'll laugh. They would make each other laugh nonstop. Gina's Juno and Vesta in Tommy's 11th. So that's actually quite strong too. So there's a lot of commitment and devotion to his 11th house. Like, she's a really good benefactor and friend. You know, it's a great friendship-based relationship, this one as well. Not only is it based on commitment and fun, you know, you've got the honeymoon marker with the Jupiter in the 5th, you've got the commitment marker with Saturn in the 4th, but you know, she's helping him make his dreams come true as well in the 11th house there. And also, of course, the friendship there. They just like Tommy says, we just like hanging out together. Her South Node in Tommy's 4th. So that really does suggest, you know, was she his wife in a past life? You know, struggling, working hard, both faceless, you know, Aquarius, working, you know, and they couldn't make a name for themselves or just, you know, had to live by societal norms perhaps. But in this lifetime, they have to work together to shine. And I like how he says, my wife does all the work and I get all the credit. Let's move on to the composite chart. I love composite charts. It just gives a really good summary of the relationship and, you know, what's the reason for the relationship, really. So first and foremost, I'm looking at angles, and honestly, that Neptune in Scorpio, to death do us part, energy, you know, on the ascendant, it really does say it all, doesn't it? You know, these guys are never going to let go of each other. The composite Sun Mercury in Sagittarius in the 2nd, they definitely value freedom, which is very interesting, as well as the moon in Sag as well. Any planet in the 1st house in a composite chart is going to take a front row seat. So they very much value freedom. It's almost like they feel free together, which is really weird, isn't it? It's such a paradox. By being together, they actually feel more free. And that one of the best manifestations of that was when they actually eloped, and they got a lot of opposition for that. And there's a quote that when he says, it was at the time in 1989 when he was at, you know, the height of his career, and I'll give you another hint, his singing career, with a #1 album single. And he says to Gina, I need a higher high. I got an idea. Let's go to Vegas now. And she said, now. And I said, now. And they got a lot of opposition from that. You know, people thinking that they weren't going to last. But then he says, people were trying to take it away until I stood up and went, wait a minute, why are we living our life for anybody else? And 35 years later, we are still married. So the opposition you can see with the Mars there on the descendant. So in a composite chart, the 7th house represents all the relationships that couple will meet. So yeah, it's almost like that Mars is actually giving them the fighting spirit to fight for their relationship. So it's actually, I think it's actually a really good position to have Mars there on the 7th there at the angle. The composite South Node story, so still in Aquarius and still conjunct Saturn and conjunct Hygeia there, which really does suggest that they weren't allowed to, you know, be aligned with their souls and soul purpose. And really, it just feels like, you know, very faceless, you know, working hard every day, grind work, you know, paying the bills, living paycheck to paycheck. That's what that feels like in the community in the 3rd house. And then duty bound, you know, obviously maybe the religion bound as well, because you've got Neptune there squaring the Saturn and the South Node. Just society rules bound, but they really in this lifetime have to shine and just don't care what everybody else says and just live their own life in the 9th house there. Leo, though, is also connected to the MC, the 10th house. So they do have to shine and in the public realm. And you've also got Uranus and Pluto in the 10th house, which is also included in their mission, which means that they have to make people, they have to help people transform their lives, definitely Pluto. They also have to help them free people's life. Like they have to make people feel free, and in a Virgo way. So in like an everyday way, like where they're helping people, you know, like washing dishes, making their meals, helping them on an everyday basis. And amazingly, in 2006, they actually did co-found a charity together that helps break the cycle of hunger, poverty, and homelessness. So that's another hint to who these people are. What have we got here? A strong, very extremely strong Jupiter in the 4th there, big home life, and an extremely strong Venus in Capricorn there at the 3rd house stall. In longevity, that's an amazing longevity marker is when you see a really big, strong Venus in a composite chart there. And Tommy says here, I've got a quote, "Somehow I became the poster boy for a long married rock star." The composite elements too are really amazing. They actually balance. So the elements that they get in the composite chart are the elements that were lacking in their individual charts. So by being together, they balance themselves out. So the composite chart basically brings the fire and the earth they both lack individually. I mean, they must, you know, feel really good together. The composite modes too, very fixed. So which is excellent, fixed angles as well, which indicates a very long staying power. So as a summary, with this first couple, you really want to see a lot of harmonious aspects, but you do want to see some challenging ones just to bring some action to the relationship there. Definitely want to see a lot of 4th house action. Boris states the 4th house is the truest astrological expression of commitment to death do us part. It refers to bonded relationships. That means relationships that cannot be broken. There are, of course, a lot of 5th house transpositions too, to give it like a honeymoon effect, but the 4th house, it's always a good balance. It's a good ratio of 4th house to 5th house. It's not like the 5th house is overriding the 4th house in this dynamic here. And he says, and to show that, he says, of course, I'm going to be the narcissistic lead singer in the house, but there are no platinum records in my house. So he definitely is really good at balancing, and Gina's helping him to balance that 4th and 5th house dynamics there. And of course, the same South Node story. We grew together and not in opposite directions. That's what Gina said. In the composite chart, you definitely, you know, lots of fixed energy there. The elements too, as I said, from the composite chart are actually the missing links to their individual charts. And, you know, he said, it's always been easy, our relationship. And I love this quote where he says, I get excited every morning when I see her every single day. I mean, that to me represents composite Neptune in Scorpio, very intense love. And of course, it's good to see a very strong, big composite Venus. That's really important too. And the secret to their marriage, they say, is mutual respect. So any guesses to the celebrity couple? I don't know. I can't access the chat. Can I? Or
Maybe people can just unmute themselves, and because there are a few people that have responded in chat. So if you have and you want to unmute yourself to let everyone know, that'd be great.
It's a shame I can't access the chat. Oh, do you want to read out the messages in the chat to see if there's any guesses there?
Yeah, there are. I think where are we? Donnie had John Bon Jovi,
Oh my gosh, yes.
and then a number of people have also confirmed that that's who they think.
Excellent. Excellent. And you guys are right. um, high school sweethearts, met in 1980 in New Jersey, USA, and they eloped in 1989 in Las Vegas at the height of John Bon Jovi's rock star status, the #1 album, I'll Be There For You. And this year, they're actually celebrating their 35th wedding anniversary. 4 kids together. And which is so beautiful to see, in 2006, they've actually co-founded JBJ Soul Foundation. Isn't it interesting that they use the word soul? Because remember that composite Neptune in Scorpio on their composite ascendant? Doesn't that say soulful work? That they're soulful people. They really need to do that. It's a foundation that provides affordable housing for thousands of people, including youth and veterans, and they have expanded their operations to now include 3 soul kitchens, which was actually Dorothea's idea. Dorothy is the wife. They're providing warm, nutritious meals. See, that's very Virgo, isn't it? Remember the Pluto and Uranus in Virgo energy in their 10th house? That's their mission. That's what they need to do, to give to people, to shine, with the Leo obviously there as well on the MC. They have to make a name for themselves, and this is their name, that they're the Soul Foundation, that they're helping. It's based on a pay it forward model. So you donate $20 for a meal and for somebody else. But if you can't donate the extra $20, then you can donate your time in the kitchen. So I thought it's quite an interesting idea. But that's when they got married at the bottom there. Isn't it interesting how it's almost like they felt freer actually getting married? So it's such a paradox there. And on the same night, look, he's on stage there. Every time when he says he's on stage, it's like he's an actor, he's performing. So it's not his real life. And I think because he had such a strong 5th house, I think that's how he honors his strong 5th house. But he has to also honor that rock solid moon in Capricorn, and that's through the marriage there. And that's a picture of them when they met, and then that's them today. Also, these songs I thought were really excellent representations of their composite nodal story. So Living on a Prayer on the left there, I thought represented their composite south node in Aquarius in the 3rd house. So they're both 24 years of age, 1986. I'm not going to sing this, I'm not a singer, but I just love the words where it's actually based on a couple called Gina and Tommy, hence why I used the names Gina and Tommy. And at that time when John Bon Jovi was writing these lyrics, he was writing the lyrics with his friend Desmond Child at the time, who had a girlfriend called Maria, but she looked like Gina, Loro Brigida, the famous Italian singer, and they were making ends meet. He is a taxi driver and she is a waitress at the time. And these words, they'll basically, Tommy and Gina, Desmond and Maria, and also, of course, Dorothea and John were basically living on a prayer. Saying we've got to hold on to what we've got because it doesn't make a difference if we make it or not. We've got each other, and that's a lot for love. We'll give it a shot. I love the bit where he says, you at the very end, you live for the fight when it's all that you've got. I just thought that was so Aquarius in the 3rd house. What else is there? yeah, how Tommy, he used to work on the docks. The union's been on strike. He's down on his luck. It's tough. And Gina works the diner all day, working for her man. She brings home her pay for love. And then we come to the right-hand side. So a lot years later, when they're both 38 years of age, in the year 2000, you know, they have to come to the composite North Node in Leo, in the 9th house. And, you know, if you look at the first, is it This Ain't a Song for the Brokenhearted, No Silent Prayer for the Faith-Hearted, I ain't going to be just a face. I can't see what it says in the crowd. You're going to hear my voice when I shout it out loud. I mean, that is so resolving the composite South Node in Aquarius, because perhaps, you know, the Aquarius is the faceless, voiceless, you know, couple. And now they have to literally shout it out loud. And how beautiful that they're doing it in song, and also with their soulful work as well. What else is there? Better Stand Tall. And of course, it's my life, how they say that they're living their life, their own life. So, you know, not based on what other people are telling them, which is probably what happened in a past life. So I'm so glad you picked. Okay, this is the next one. Dean and Joanna, not their real names, of course. Both, so, oh no, sorry, 41 years together. So I'll look at, so Joanna's chart, you'll see that she's a high freedom seeker with Sagittarius, Aquarius, and Mercury, and the devotion asteroid there, and the Sirius in Sagittarius there on the ascendant. Her Sun and Venus in the 11th. So, you know, that's very intense love as well, in groups. And I think that she satisfies that with her acting job, you know, how she's able to honor that very intense Scorpio energy there. Her Mars in Leo, that's very intense as well, on the 8th house door, conjunct Saturn. She, you know, obviously she likes very strong, status-orientated, showy men, like her actor husband. So those are 2 hints. They're both actors. Plus, though, there's a Saturn, it's conjunct Saturn in Cancer. So, you know, she definitely values a very solid, strong, foundational father-husband figure. And she knew that Dean was the one when she saw how doting he was to her kids from her previous marriage. And both, this is also another hint, that both come from previous marriages with kids. So the South Node for her is also very strong in the 1st house, at 0 degrees in Capricorn. And then you've got, you know, oh, hello. And then you've got the Saturn in at the 8th house, Saturn in Cancer in the 7th. You know, to me that suggests that in a past life she was bound by marriage, basically. That's what that says to me. And the North Node, you see, conjunct the Moon in Gemini. So the North Node in Cancer there, you know, she definitely has to master relationships, definitely. Perhaps, you know, be a mum and be a very supporting wife and mum. But she can't feel trapped in this lifetime. I think so she still has to be within a relationship, but definitely not feel trapped. And another hint, I mean, I don't know why, when I saw Moon in Gemini conjunct the North Node in Cancer in the 7th, that to me just looks like she would have made a great psychologist, actually. And it's no surprise that she's actually, later in life, she's actually founded a wonderful children's program. It's classroom based, where they teach kids in schools all about mindfulness, and that includes how to meditate, anything to deal with their emotions. And yeah, I thought that was a really good way that she's actually doing her North Node there. But also that really does say that she really does need to be in a relationship where she feels free, because the moon in Gemini, the ruler of Gemini, Mercury, goes back to her ascendant in Sagittarius, which honors freedom. There's no way that in this lifetime that she can feel trapped in any way or caged like she possibly did in a past life. Her element's very air dominant. So now we look at Dean's chart, and he's definitely, Cancer ascendant. He also values freedom a lot. Look at the Uranus there, very prominent in the first house. But then he's also got the moon in Cancer, that in its own sign in Cancer, such a strong Cancer sign there in the second. He very much values, he's the protector, the provider, the nurturer, the father figure. It's an interesting dichotomy there. Like he still needs freedom, but he still needs big nurturing, So he has to balance those two out as well. And perhaps that's why both of them, even though they've been together for 41 years, they are not married. They've chosen to not marry. Chiron on his, that's another hint, of course. Chiron on his descendant is very strong as well there. And it's trine his south node there in the fourth house, conjunct Saturn. So, in a past life, definitely duty bound as the father, as perhaps as the husband. Chiron brings in the energy wound, the generational wound of not being able to perhaps, make his goals, get to the top of that mountain there. Overly anxious, the Virgo, overly worried, perhaps too many responsibilities, and he just wasn't able to make his dreams come true in a past life. But now he has to definitely make his dreams come true in the 10th house, and he has to shine big time. He also has to be the father figure as well, with the Mercury, the ruler of the South Node, there in the 10th, and conjunct the North Node. He has to also balance home life with being, he's an actor, out in the 10th house. Elements, he's water dominant. And what's interesting is, so he lacks air in his chart, and Joanna, remember, is very air dominant. So she brings the air in for Dean. And Dean brings the earth that Joanna lacks. So it's a perfect balance. So the Bible one, we're looking at, Joanna on the outside wheel there. And the first thing that I saw was the south. So Joanna's south node, 0 degrees, like smack bang exact on his descendant. Like that basically says it all, they're both learning how to heal from not feeling bound, not feeling duty bound. So it's perhaps no surprise that being married is something that they both can't do in this lifetime. Sun trine the sun. Excellent, beautiful interaspect there. The sun trine the moon. the sun, when the sun trines the moon, either way, you can, by the way, into aspects, you can read backwards. Yeah. Very nourishing. Honestly, when I see sun trine moon, oh, that's one of the most beautiful longevity markers I've seen. Jupiter opposing the Venus, it's an opposition, but it's a very romantic one there. Remember, it's not bad to see. It's actually really good to see a lot of oppositions in synastry charts there. Mars trine Mars is amazing connection there, physical attraction there. And the first thing actually that he said to her when they met was, "You've got a great body." And she said, and she was not, she actually loved that. She said, "Oh, thank you." She wasn't offended at all. Joanna's Jupiter in Dean, so transposes in his 5th house of children and fun. So, they're constantly laughing, constantly smiling when you see them photographed together at events. The second Bible, so we've got Joanna in the middle there, and Dean's Neptune. So right on her MC there, but it's conjunct. Gosh, that's a beautiful Neptune-Jupiter connection. Like boundless, endless, limitless, love there, which is spiritual soulmate connection there. Dean's moon and Uranus in. This is an interesting. So remember how he's got that paradox there, the moon and the Uranus, that like he needs that nurture, staying close and like the strong motherly nurturing, but then he needs that freedom. He's got the freedom that he needs in a relationship, and it's in her 7th house there. So she has to honor that freedom that he wants as well. But remember, she's also a Sagittarius ascendant, so she definitely honors freedom. So it's a good balance there. Dean's Venus in Joanna's 4th. That's a beautiful connection of making a home together there, a loving home. And Dean's vertex there on Joanna's Venus. This was definitely fated for them to meet. The composite chart, beautiful composite chart. Look at Jupiter right at the top there. Very lucky relationship there. Jupiter, ruling the MC, freedom there, but in a very committed Capricorn sign. It's almost like they're showing people that it's almost like they're leading by example, and they need to show people that, yes, you don't need like a marriage certificate to be together, to be, the sun also in a very strong committed Capricorn there, but it's at the 11th house door, so of friendship. It's almost like they need to do a committed friendship almost, is that the best? And they've been able to do that actually. And then also you've got the Venus and Mercury in very friendship, loving sign as well. So I think that's how they've been able to make their relationship last long, is by honoring each other's need for freedom. People are constantly asking them why they don't get married. And Joanna responded once that they have both seen how ugly divorce can be. So they both come from divorce, yeah. Joanna states, "I would have been long divorced if I'd been married. Marriage is an interesting psychological thing. If you need to feel bound to someone, then it's important to be married." Which is, so, that's the South Node talking as well. There's a bad memory of being bound in a past life, and that just is not going to work for her in this lifetime. But of course, she definitely needs to do relationships because the North Node is in her 7th house, plus she's got the Scorpio sun, yeah, that really demands a close contact. The North Node, she's there in Taurus. So the composite North Node in Taurus, the 2nd house. So, and this basically says, so the composite South Node in Scorpio in the 8th house, and it's conjunct Juno, the goddess of marriage. It's so literal. It's like, yes, they were married in a past life. Yes, it was a very enmeshed relationship, right? Perhaps controlling, you know, disbalancing power and you know, and they need to get out of that now into the 2nd house. It's almost like they have to have their own bank accounts and make their own money, you know, their own resources, but still come from, still be together, but still have independence. And I think she says it really well when she says, if you have independence, if you have enough money and a sense of independence and you like your independence, then there's something psychological about not being married, because it gives you the freedom to make decisions one way or the other. Her composite Uranus, see, the composite Uranus, that's a really interesting, you know, at the 4th house there with the moon. Of course, the moon in its own rulership in the 4th, that's a really good commitment marker, like that's solid, strong. But having Uranus there in, you know, close to the 4th, that's an interesting dynamic there. It's almost like saying they've been able to blend their families together. So, you know, it's quite an interesting, perhaps different home environment, but they still have to have the nurturance. They've got the 4th house, even though Uranus might make that 4th house a little bit weak, the moon makes it solid, strong. Yeah, makes the 4th house solid, strong. And they say the secret to their relationship is family, and then of course fun, laughter, and sex. So there's that always that mix, isn't there, of the freedom, so the Uranus freedom with the family moon, you know, commitment there. Elements, so in the composite chart, fire is a little bit diluted, which is actually a good thing because they're both fire dominant. So that helps with compromise in a relationship. So longevity markers so far we've seen. So, you know, definitely a lot of, once again, a lot of inter aspects made between the couple's primal triad and personal planets. Very important. Mostly are harmonious, but there are, of course, some challenging ones. But you want that ratio, more harmonious to challenging. And each of them, of course, with the elements, brings the missing element that they each lack in their charts. So opposites to attract there. And of course, the South Node connection that they need to resolve together, both experiencing an ugly divorce. And then their North Node connection is where Joanna states, I like the idea that I can wake up in the morning and make decisions every day if I want to be here. Staying independent with independent thinking is important. Like she says independent quite a lot, doesn't she? So miss the Sagittarius there. In the composite chart, good balance of 4th and 5th house. And the composite, they both have the composite also in their natal charts, Neptune in Libra. So very relationship focused. Yeah. Balancing of elements too, obviously, to create a harmonious relationship. So can anyone guess who this couple is? So they've never been married, but they've been together for 41 years. And they both were
Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn.
It is. Who said that?
Lisa.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi.
What gave you what was the biggest hint? When did you first realize that?
You said 2 actors, and then you talked about being together for a long time but never married. So that kind of gave it away to me.
Yeah, totally. Because they're constantly being asked, aren't they?
Yeah.
In the media, when are you going to get married? When are you going to get married?
And I couldn't really think of another couple that have been together that long.
I don't think so. It's amazing. But can you see why it's the energy that they're bringing in.
Yes.
That it's a past life bad memory of marriage. And they've already done it with their previous marriages. So why would they do it again? It's like, no, I'm not going to do that. And she even said it. If I get married, I'm going to be divorced. Like, so, I mean, I think it's a great coping strategy technically to be able to still stay together. Like yeah. Anyway, thanks, Lisa. Cool.
Thanks.
Oh, and here's the picture. Don't they look gorgeous together? And that's the first movie that swing shift. Well, they originally met when she was 21 and he was 16. But Goldie thought, gorgeous, but way too young. And then, so that was in 1966. But then they re-meet another 17 years later in 1983 on the set of that movie Swing Shift. And look how beautiful she's looking there. And that's when their romance sparked. Yeah. So they've been together since 1983 technically, and they've got one son together. And grandparents to 7 children. And her foundation is an amazing global foundation called Mind Up. And it's a classroom-based program that teaches resilience and mindfulness to now 400,000 children around the world. And she was inspired to do that from the after effects of 9/11 and just seeing the higher incidence of, depression and anxiety, especially among children. So she was, I thought that was a really good way of her doing her North Node. Yeah, so that's, okay, last but not least, I don't know, what's the time? Have we got time? 8, what's the time? 7, 8? Yeah, I think we've got time. I had to do, Benefer. I don't know if you've heard in the grapevine that there's trouble in paradise, but they haven't announced their, well, apparently divorce papers are have been signed, but and they're waiting until they disclose that to the public. But anyway, that's just speculation. But technically, let's just say they're still married. These guys, they originally met in 2001, and Jennifer Lopez was already married twice to a second husband, to a dancer called Chris Judd. So J-Lo and Ben, they actually meet, so 29 and 32 years of age. So that's their Saturn, going through their Saturn return. J-Lo's been married 4 times. This is hopefully 4th time lucky, because this is a 4th marriage with Ben, technically. Obviously they became known as the it couple, Benefer. They got engaged, but then they called it off. I think it was 3 days prior in 2003. And they blamed it on the overwhelming media attention. Like there was just way too much attention there. They had to have like 3 J-Lo decoys or something, and they just couldn't handle the pressure. But then in 2004, they broke it off. But then after 17 years, so 2021, April 2021, they rekindle their romance. And this is, interesting enough, during their Chiron return. So Ben's 49 and J-Lo's 52. They do get engaged in April, so 1 year later, April 2022, and they actually do get married this time in Las Vegas, as you do, on the 16th of July 2022. But then they had like another big whole wedding after for their friends and families as well a few months later. She's done a lot of things like, to really stamp her commitment, to show her commitment to the world. Like she's changed her surname to Mrs. Affleck. I mean, honestly, when I heard for Valentine's Day last year, when they each got commitment tattoos, I thought that was the beginning of the end. I thought that's, also this year for Valentine's Day, she self-finances an album with a documentary called The Greatest Love Story Never Told, and it's based on actual love letters that Ben kept throughout the 20 years. from the first day that they met, and because they've been constantly emailing each other and sending letters to each other, so they've remained friends technically. Benny's very supportive, especially of her work, and but these letters apparently were very private, and Ben wasn't happy to showcase them anyway. So there is a little bit of trouble in, I like to say, Bridgerton, because Ben was a no-show at J-Lo's recent 55th Bridgerton themed birthday party. And that was on the 24th of July. And apparently on the same day, Ben buys his own little mansion, which apparently was a dagger in the heart for J-Lo. They quietly list their Beverly Hills home for sale in early July. And their last public meeting was in May. And they were on opposite sides of the country for their second wedding anniversary. So, you know, it's not looking good. And just look how it, and especially when he's just recent, this was like a couple of days ago, Ben just got an interesting haircut there. It's almost like he wants to be hidden, doesn't he? He wants to like shave off, he's literally shaving off his whole relationship with J-Lo. Like, and look at the leather jacket, he's literally become Batman again. It's weird. And then J-Lo's, you know, that's what she does. She needs the whole party of life that she is, and you'll see that very much in her chart. She's a triple Leo. The Sun, Mercury. I like to say triple Leo because we've got the Sun, Mercury, and the Ascendant in Leo. You know, the performer. Like that's what she is. She's also got a very strong Moon, Neptune in Scorpio at the 5th house door. You know, she's called herself a hopeless romantic, sex addict. She's also recently admitted, you know, I was terrified of being alone. She has called her mum a narcissist, you know, a life of the party type person. You know, lots of people call J-Lo that too. She's the diva, yeah. She's been married 4 times, and the first 2 marriages each lasted only 2 years. The third marriage with singer Mark Anthony lasted 10 years for the sake of the children, apparently. And, you know, July 16, 2024 is coming up to their second year anniversary. So hopefully this is not like the 2-year curse that people are thinking that she's having. So she has said, whenever someone asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, my answer was always in love. She's got a very flirty Gemini Venus in the 11th. You know, I think everyone she meets, she might think, ooh, I'm in love with. Sirius in the house of relationships. That's a lot of learning, yeah, about relationships. Does she also attract men she needs to fix, perhaps, you know? And then the famous song that came out that you know, about I'm Ain't Your Mama. The South Node story that she has in the 3rd in Virgo, so that comes in with a lot of anxiety, a lot of worry, conjunct Pluto. There's a lot of fear there of not feeling good enough, yeah. Conjunct Uranus there, expanded by Jupiter. That's just, you know, divorce, not feeling good enough, so feeling scared that she'll be abandoned at all times. She did say that with her dad, she felt very ignored by him because he was working nights all the time and slept all day, so she didn't get a good enough connection with him. And her mum was, you know, the life of the party, very different dynamics there. I thought, you know, is she being the diva archetype, you know, a coping strategy to numb the pain of not feeling loved from her father almost? And it's almost like what she learned from what her mum did, you know? So being a narcissist almost, you know, you have to tell yourself that you're worthy, because you're not going to get that from your partner there. So the South Node story, it's almost like, to me, I thought it was like she's redoing her mum's story. And then when you look at Ben's chart, it's really interesting because, well, first of all, he's a water. He's like a quadruple water there. Like, look at that. South Node in Cancer, Venus in Cancer, Ascendant in Cancer. That's extremely different to JLo's fire. Yeah. Ascendant. They definitely work very differently. He's like Batman, and she's like Miss Lights, Camera, Action. They're both fire dominant in their elements, so there's no balance there. Like, fire plus fire, you're gonna get burnt. They also both lack earth. There's no grounded foundation. They don't each bring the balance that they need. So, perhaps the good times are really good, but the bad times would be really, really bad. The modes too, he's cardinal, she's cardinal and fixed. I mean, I've written he's just going to go and run off when the heat gets too much, being the cardinal dominant there. He obviously also has the same Leo sun as well. He needs to act, of course, needs an audience. Mars in Virgo in the 3rd, that conjunct the sun, that could be, temper, quick temper there. Same Scorpio moon. So that's huge. They both got the moon that falls in Scorpio in the 5th house. They both have that dynamic there. So that's like really diving in, in intense love, right? The South Node story that he has there, in Cancer there at the 2nd house door, with the moon in the 5th, in Scorpio there. I mean, he has said that obviously it's very open that he has dealt with a lot of gambling and alcohol addictions. His dad was an alcoholic. He became homeless. He was apparently an aspiring playwright, but mostly unemployed. And so Ben said that he basically failed in in his life, and he didn't want that happening to him. But it does almost look like that he's almost playing his father's story in a way. The reasons why his first marriage to Jennifer Garner, she did say that it was definitely because he started drinking again, and the gambling issues. Really wasn't because he had cheated with the nanny. But anyway, and you see Sirius so strong. See the asteroid Sirius there in Virgo on the IC there. That's how he perceives his mum. So his mum she had to become the breadwinner, and she was like, the solid, strong, every day. She was there, they obviously, she became the parent when they divorced, and she was Harvard educated, school teacher there. So, and you'll see that Sirius is so strong because when you look at the bi-wheels, so what's conjunct Ben's Sirius is Jennifer's South Node. Exact degrees. So that's very powerful there. This is a nodal story. This is like, Jenny's almost helping Ben. Firstly, she would feel like his mama in a way. But she's also helping him deal with his 4th house, Pluto in the 4th house. That's challenging. She's trying to bring the freedom there to help him with his the way that he numbs himself with his addictions there. She's definitely obviously very devoted to him. She's look the devotion goddess there on his ascendant. That's really beautiful there. And you know, having Juno on his descendant, he would have thought, you know, she's the one basically. What have we got? We've got Jupiter, JLo's Jupiter and Uranus there. Yeah, conjunct his Pluto. So that, you know, that's really, that can be, I mean, quite tough there. That's it. I don't know if you know that JLo's just recently launched a alcoholic new, like it's a pre-mixed cocktail range called DeLola, after her. Her nickname is Lola, so Lola from her. And it's just an interesting product launch, I thought, that you would do, knowing that, well, firstly, knowing that she has said that she doesn't drink, and secondly, her, you know, her husband is a recovering alcoholic. I just thought that was a really interesting product to decide to launch. Even though I must admit, she did launch it in 2020, when just before she did rekindle her relationship with Ben. But I think, I don't know, I think that would have been a bit insensitive, or perhaps a bit confrontational for Ben. And you can see that with the Uranus Jupiter on his Pluto there. I think that's playing with those dynamics. You do have beautiful, like you've got the moon, obviously the moon conjunct the moon there, you know, passion on steroids. Mercury conjunct Mercury, beautiful there. The sun conjunct the sun. You know, all those three conjunctions, it's almost like place like. So I'm just thinking, you know, is there just too much? Are they just too much alike for their own good in a way? You know, I can hardly see any harmonious trines or sextiles. You know, no one's giving each other any balance here. It's like icing on top of icing. You know, do you need that much icing on a cupcake? So also, what I did see is a lot of strong Saturn aspects. You know, Saturn takes a lifetime, doesn't it, to learn. And you know, very strong. Like look at Jennifer's Saturn opposing his moon. Ouch. That, you know, that can be quite controlling there. She has stated that she doesn't let him speak to other women. You know, another very strong, very challenging aspect is the Mars square, the Mars. That's extremely challenging. So yes, that can be a lot of fireworks. You know, when the good times are good, they're great. But that can very much go down very quickly, and you can get burnt very easily there. And the south nodes, they do sextile each other. So when that happens, you know, when there's a harmonious aspect between south nodes, it means that in a past life they were playing together, they were enablers together. Yeah. So all right, partners in crime, they're almost like enabling each other's addictions. She perhaps addicted to wanting love outside of herself, seeking love outside of herself through her followers, you know, through fame, and he through numbing himself through the alcohol and the gambling. And it all stems from the lack of love that they felt from he from his father, and she from her father there. So it's really interesting how they're interplaying roles for each other. You can see that. And remember that first quote that I said about, we choose partners based on our parents. This is definitely that. You'll see also in the second bi-wheel. So Ben's Juno Uranus on her IC. Oh, well, definitely look how strong Ben's Juno is on Jennifer's IC. That's, the husband, but playing the role of her dad, right? So she has to heal those dad's wounds through Ben. Ben's Venus, extremely different there in Cancer to her Venus in Gemini. It's not even, well, I suppose you call it a semi-sextile. He just wants he wants a very private life, whereas she, she's a social butterfly. They're very different ways of loving each other, but they do have the strong though connection with the sun, the same sun in Leo, the same moon in Scorpio, and the same Mercury in Leo. Ben's Sirius on her south node. Where's that? Ben's Sirius on her south node. Can't see it. That represents, oh, there it is. Yeah, in the third house. Ben's Sirius. So giving the ultimate nourishment, to her south node issue there. He's a very great supporter. He's always been a very great supporter of her work. He says it publicly too. And in her latest documentary, she does state that, I didn't think much of myself, but what Ben did in making me believe in myself, no one else has ever done. So, it's like she's that worrywart, like, oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, I'm not skinny enough. I'm not young enough. And he's always saying, you look hot, I don't want to hear it. Ben's Juno and Moon. Yeah, so that's also very strong. He definitely wants a private, see the moon in Scorpio in the fourth, he wants private, sacred home with her. So he's trying to balance her need for, bells and whistles, up in lights. It's a very different ascendants. He's got the triple water, triple Cancerian ascendant. And then, the fire, Leo, extreme. They're trying to compromise, but there doesn't seem to be any compromising energy because they're both fire dominant. They're both cardinal dominant. I think that's what's challenging. There's no compromising energies that's making this relationship easy. Uranus, oh yeah, on the IC, yeah, so he does need to feel free, but that's hard when she's trying to control who he speaks to. Neptune conjunct Mars in the fifth, that's super strong. So yeah, when the good times are good, they're great, but that also can be very explosive fights, very public explosive fights they've had too. Saturn conjunct Venus and opposing, yeah, her vertex. So remember how we saw Saturn playing a big role in the other bi-wheel? We also see Saturn playing a huge role in Jennifer's chart as well, where his Saturn is conjunct her Venus. That can be very challenging. That can be like, she's a social butterfly and he's like literally cutting her wings. That's what it can feel like. And Ben says just recently says, he said, you know, getting back together, I said, listen, one of the things I don't want is a relationship on social media. But then he continues, I sort of realized it's not a fair thing to ask. It's sort of like, you're going to marry a boat captain. And you're like, well, I don't like the water. So he adds, we're just two different people with different kinds of approaches, trying to learn to compromise. So the two different approaches, he's water, Cancerian ascendant, she's Leo, fire. How do you mix water and fire? Yes, that's a great creative energy. You know, you can make lava. You can make new land. And perhaps they might, it's best, well, they haven't actually made a movie since their first movie, Jiggly, when they first met, but that was a big flop. But I suppose this documentary that they've made together, which showed just recently, you know, that was a creative energy that they used. And I think that has helped. But yeah, trying to learn to compromise. Very, very tricky to compromise when, you know, both cardinal, both fire, both first quad, dominant, you know, both self-orientated. There's no, it's, yeah, once again, it's icing on icing. Anyway, that's something that, so if we look at the composite chart, even the composite chart doesn't bring any balance either. It's still fire dominant. Again, and it still lacks earth. Ouch, you know. Also, another big thing is the composite chart. So this is the chart of the relationship. It has a Cancerian ascendant. That's very challenging for J-Lo. Extremely challenging. I think she feels watered down by him, you know. Once again, you know, he's Mr. Batman, wants to go into his cave. And she's, but I want to go out and, you know, lights, camera, action. Ben definitely has the upper hand in this relationship as well, because the primal triad, so the Cancerian, the composite Cancerian ascendant, the sun in Leo, and the moon in Scorpio are the exact same primal triad that Ben has. So Ben feels more comfortable in a way. And he was actually the one that initiated them getting back together. He was also the one that broke it off both times. Well, they're assuming that he broke it off the second time, which is still not too sure, but he definitely has the upper hand in his relationship. And that brings an imbalance in the power dynamics of this relationship, which doesn't make it easy at all. Once again, there's no democratic, like, you know, no balance. So fire dominant, lacks earth, you know, cardinal angles. That's no staying power, really. Just, you know, quick, yeah, like lighting like a switch. Also, I've noticed very fifth house dominant. So, you know, and then there's a very strong Scorpio stellium in the fifth house. So definitely very creative and passionate. They should really do, yeah, a lot more creative works together, I think, to use up that Scorpio stellium, just to have fun together. But the problem here with this is that it's a very weak fourth house. And with the Uranus in the fourth house, that can bring instability, chaos. Yes, they are living in a blended, well, they're trying to live in a blended family with previous children from each marriage. But what's really concerning is the Mars there in the fourth house. That's that's really challenging to have that in the fourth house there. That can even just mean they did, any house they find, there's going to be problems with it. And I think that's what they both said, that they both didn't like the house they chose, and they spent quite a lot of time choosing their mansion, but there was always problems, with maintenance issues and stuff like that. So, Mars in the fourth can bring lots of arguments as well, and lots of repressed anger too from, perhaps, obviously Ben's dad there. You could definitely say that. Just previous parental, childhood trauma issues that can come up in there. So it's just a weak fourth house there. The South Node story in Leo. So conjunct Hygeia. Hygeia always means that, well, when it's conjunct the South Node, it means that you could not have lived, you weren't able to live aligned to your soul purpose. So in the second, it looks like, they were trapped by being the it couple, I suppose, being royals, Leo, trapped by Hollywood, I suppose. And Ben does say, I like this quote that he says, the trap for an actor is that you become too successful at what you're trying to do, and you can find yourself stuck there. So they really need to go to the 8th house, which is still definitely merged very close together, but they have to be more Aquarius. And that's really tricky when they're both fire, and especially J-Lo, very Leo, both Leo actually, aren't they? Both Leo's sun. That's, this very uncharted territory where they have to become the new age of Aquarius there, where it's almost like it's not about me, it's about us and others. And with the Saturn in the 11th, it's really saying, they need to be a force together to make other people's lives better in a way, so we have, I've called it the shortivity markers, but yeah, so you definitely see how you can see the contrast where you see a lot more challenging aspects that are overriding the harmonious ones, a lot more conjunctions. Are they just too alike? There's just too, it's like plus like, right? So both cardinal, both first quad, which doesn't make room for any compromise there. They're just going to shout and go off their own way. Both fire dominant, both lack earth, no balance, no staying power. And of course, the control markers there with the Saturn, both learning their Saturn. Saturn does take a long time, obviously, to learn. So perhaps they are doing it now, though, with their Chiron return. They're trying to get there. But I think their relationship, they're both trying to control each other and change each other in some way or form, and they're learning that true love is not about control. It's about feeling free. They have a very weak 4th house, of course, with Mars in there. And remember, the 4th house is the deepest house, and that is where you are going to see the super glue needed to hold on after the honeymoon. Then, of course, they've got too much honeymoon. 5th house overrides 4th house energies, and the composite elements don't bring any balance. It brings extra icing to the cake. But they are resolving their South Node story and 4th house early childhood wounds together, so acting out the roles of their parents they have repressed anger with. So it's actually, it's a good way that they are, because, action, challenging aspects do call for evolution. So you're not going to evolve, are you, if you don't have this the hard work that you need to do. So what I would say to Jen and Ben, to balance the elements, especially to add some earth, yeah. Even if they can find a holiday home away from the city and lights. A composite Cancer ascendant needs time alone. So they really have to set very strong boundaries in who they allow access to them. I know that's easier than said with a Hollywood couple there, but yeah, I think J-Lo especially has to honor Ben's need there for cave time, I suppose you'd say. I would also seek out the support of elderly couples who have managed to create a long-term bond and learn from the example, because the composite on descendant is Capricorn. And remember, that's the relationships you bring in. So I think it would help if they had some people to lead a good example, Also, because of that Uranus and the Mars in the fourth, I think I would actually tell them to actually embrace them living in separate mansions, but still being together, And I'd also encourage them to definitely find more meaningful work to do together. I just, perhaps that's at the bottom there, that's the Delolo range that she's just brought out. Why not bring out a mocktails range at the same time to, who knows? Food for thought. The meaningful humanitarian work, is because the North Node, this is the composite North Node in Aquarius, with Saturn in Taurus in the 11th house, it's also gonna that needs a lot of that means they have to do meaningful work together that they both get inspired by. I don't think Ben's going to be too much inspired by this Dalola alcohol range when he can't drink alcohol, and she apparently doesn't technically drink either. So perhaps more work, and also if you remember, the composite Venus is in the 11th house. That can be a tricky house, but it does say that they need a more spiritual bond together. So, perhaps charity work they can do together. Maybe even work with people who have substance abuse issues, perhaps, But even just doing yoga together or something like that. Oh, I even wrote, learning astrology together. Who knows? The work you do together, it needs to also, they've got composite Chiron in the 10th. So they really do need to together work on the Chiron wound, which is in Aries, and then natally it's both in Aries as well, where they need to stand on their own 2 feet as just themselves, and not have to add bells and whistles to themselves to make them feel like they are worthy. So they definitely need to find their sense of self. And it's interesting how they're actually doing that through acting. So by role playing other people, they actually are discovering their true selves. So then I also suggest, why not perhaps even just start a school for impoverished kids, or, acting school, or, things that are both meaningful to them. I think it will really help them with their North Node. I know it's uncharted territory, but it's something that I think they have to put focus on. Projects working together, I think that's what will help them, because they can be quite a good creative force together, because they've got a lot of fire. Yeah. So yeah, those are the 3 couples. That's what they look like at the moment. And these are the recommended reading, the books that I use to do the research, and also I just find these books amazing. So Skymates 1, Skymates 2 by Jodie and Stephen Forrest. SkyMates 2 is solely just on the composite chart. It's very detailed. And then Jan Spiller with Cosmic Love, amazing book, solely focused on the lunar nodes, and yeah, just amazing work. And if you've got any other recommendations, I'd love to hear them in the chat box. So thank you. That's my time. I think, what's the time now? 9 o'clock.
Amazing, Elena. Thank you so much. That was a huge amount of work you put into that. I think, yeah, everybody can really see how much time you've invested in that. So thank you so much for doing that.
Oh, no worries. I hope it was an interesting, yeah, and you learnt a bit.
Sure. If you want to stop sharing your screen, you'll be able to see the chat box and things as well, just in case anybody had any comments or questions for you. But also, everyone, feel free just to unmute yourself and
how do you do that? So have I done that?
Yes.
Yep.
So how do I go? Oh, like this? No. Oh, crap. Yeah. Here we go. Oh, and yeah. I'm so glad that you got the celebrities. Oh, thank you. Any questions? I mean, honestly, you can go like, you know, I was reading. I mean, I'm really not really a fan of J-Lo and Ben Affleck, but I didn't actually know too much about them at all, really. But it's really interesting. I now seem to like them because, you know, it's really hard doing a relationship in public, isn't it? You know, like they can't hide and they've got all their shit out basically. So, you know, I think they're actually doing a really good job in a way. And I know J-Lo got a lot of flack for putting out that latest documentary on, you know, on basically on her. Apparently everyone said that was very narcissistic and blah, blah, blah. But I think she's actually doing, I think that's her therapy. That's both their therapy. And it's actually helping others with their relationships too. So I think it's a good thing how they're doing that. Yeah.
Are there any final questions for Elena, just from anyone in the group? Just before I finish the recording.
Thanks very much, Elena.
Oh, thank you, Vet. Hopefully it wasn't too much.
It was a different perspective looking at it from when you started with Neptune. That was like a completely different, you know, perspective of looking at it. Yeah, so I found that interesting.
Okay, good. Yeah, I thought, well, you know, Neptune is, yeah, I was trying to concentrate on the overall,
Yeah,
the undertone, really, wasn't it? You know, the collective energies that
and I was a bit confused at first. I'm thinking, why Neptune? Because I've actually got Pisces in my 7th house and Neptune in my 1st in Libra. And then, of course, I realized the basic, you know, Aries, Libra, Venus, you know, thing before I caught on to that.
Right. Yeah, I used the energies of, because obviously, you know, the energies in our chart are in our DNA, and of course we're always going to be affected by that as we go through life. So that's why I thought it was important to start with the Neptune that is in your birth chart. But then also, of course, you're going to be affected by the current energies that Neptune is in. So yeah, it's just really interesting to see how we're going into a new age of Aquarius. I think that age group is really bringing in those trends, isn't it? But also the next year, Neptune in Aries, that's going to be really interesting.
I tell you what I do find interesting, because in tarot, the 11th, the central 11th card is Libra, And of course, right next to it, the 12th card is ruled by Neptune, right next to the Venus ruled Libra.
Oh, say that again. Say that again. You said
The 11th card in tarot is Justice, ruled by Venus, ruled by Libra and Venus.
okay.
And the 12th card right next to it is the Hangman, which is ruled by the planet Neptune.
Oh.
So the Neptune is right next to the Venus.
Yeah,
in a
yeah.
sense.
Well, Venus, I just saw, you know, Venus is the higher octave is Neptune, isn't it? So
yeah. But I mean, I've looked at a lot of stuff through tarot, but I've never actually thought the coincidental thing of the Neptune being the higher octave of Venus right next to, you know, the Libra card, which
fascinating.
is the 7th house ruler. Yeah.
Excellent. Oh, that's good to know.
And the Neptune in the 12th card, it's associated with memory and water.
Ah, well, yeah, water holds memory, doesn't it? Like, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And water is Neptune. When I see Neptune, I just see water. That's what I see.
Well, the reason it's memory, it's associated with the Hebrew letter mem, and mem is the Hebrew letter for water.
Oh.
So it's one of the 3 dominant elements in the tarot. There are 3 elements, not 4, interestingly enough.
Ah, what are the 3 elements again?
Well, your 3 elements except for earth.
Ah.
So they have air, water, fire, but they're not showing earth in the major arcana. For a reason.
Right, right. Oh, Georgina is saying, it's my life. I've got that song in my head. Yeah, you'll have to. I do suggest going onto YouTube and listening to It's My Life, the actual lyrics. And even the other song, Living on a Prayer. It's so literal. So literal, isn't it? Like he literally, you know, he and her living on a prayer to make it, you know, out into the world, to make a name for themselves. They're literally living on a prayer, you know, paycheck to paycheck, and then they make it, you know, at the end by realizing that they make it because they do it their own way. You know, it's my life. They do it their own. So, you know, they get married their own way. Yeah, they do it their own way. Even I think the lyrics, one of the lyrics where he says, you know, how he mentions Frankie in the It's My Life. He got a lot of opposition for writing that, but he said, no, I'm going to put that in it. So it was good how he was able to fight. They're both able to fight together. And it's really interesting, though, together they felt freer. Really interesting to see both the freedom markers in both Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell, but also in John Bon Jovi and Dorothea. They both feel very free together. Whereas J-Lo and Ben, when they're together, they feel both manipulated and controlled together, don't they? It's almost like they can't live without each other.
Yes, it was a contrast. The 3rd chart to the first 2, but it was a big contrast.
Yeah. I wanted to show that contrast too. I hope that was, yeah. Anyway, excellent. All right.
Thank you very much. I'll just hit the stop